You asked for it, and so here it is. Here is the tutorial to my beginner's 6x6 Be Happy album. If you'd like to see the walkthrough first, I will link that video up the top. You can go and watch that first. As with a lot of my albums, this was filmed over on Twitch, so you will see the overlays and all the added extras that happen up on Twitch, including things that shoot across the screen and a little video of me in the corner. If you ever want to actually see it live, come and see us on Twitch. I'll pop the link down in the description for you. I hope you enjoy. Okay, here we go. So, I do have my assistant Magrat with me, but I'll tell you more about her in a moment. So, you're going to need 3 sheets of 12x12 card, whichever colour you like. We're going to score at 6 inches one way, turn it and score at 6 inches the other way. You need 3 of these. I'm using this craft card because it matches with my paper collection, which is the Be Happy from Dovecraft. You use whatever you like. In centimetres, that is 30 centimetres by 30 centimetres, and you will score at 15 centimetres on each side. I'm going to try my best to do inches and centimetres. If I miss any, I'll just pop them on the screen. So all 3, score at 6, turn, score at 6. Now my lovely assistant Magrat loves to visit us over on Twitch, as I mentioned. So if you'd like to see her live, feed her a treat, things like that, come and see us on Twitch. Okay, so now we're going to do some burnishing and then some cutting. So first we're going to just burnish those score lines. You use whatever you like. I have this amazing ergonomic bone folder, which is so useful for my hands with arthritis and lupus. So we're going to just fold and burnish all of those score lines. And then it is going to be time to do a little bit of cutting. So on all 3, we're going to cut the same piece. And we're just going to remove 1 score line. So from the bit nearest to you, cut up one side of your score line to the centre, okay? And then I'm just going to remove the score line by cutting the other side. So we're basically just removing a slither of card. I'll show you in a second how much. We're not removing very much. We're literally just removing that bit that we flattened as we scored it, just to give it a bit of neatness and to make it look good. Take your time with this cutting. If you prefer to use a paper trimmer, you can. This will be visible. These are your pages. So please take your time with your scoring, with your folding, with your burnishing, with your cutting. These will be very visible. Okay, so on all 3, we're just going to remove that slither. Sorry, I'm just testing out my new scissors on the stream. They're great for again, my hands. I have quite a lot of accessible tools, I guess, because I have such bad hands. Okay, so remove that final score line. Again, you can use whichever colour card you like. And then we're going to do some folding. Now, keep that gap that you removed, that slither that you've removed, pointing towards you. Okay, then you're going to fold the 2 bottom pieces up or away from you. You can see it really clearly because my card is slightly different colour on both sides. Then you're going to fold the middle as usual. There are going to be some jump cuts in this because I've edited out all the talking, all the bits that you don't need. This is purely a tutorial. If you'd like to see this in real time, then please go over to Twitch. It is saved there. Okay, so again, fold those 2 pieces towards you and then fold the middle. Isn't my assistant beautiful? She's super cute. She loves to visit on Twitch. Okay, we'll do it one more time. So with that slither towards you, we're going to fold or up or away the 2 pieces nearest to us. And then we're going to fold the centre fold as per usual. And what you end up with is this set of 3 pages, essentially, from that 1 12x12 sheet. So if I show you here, sheet 1, you have 1, 2, 3. Sheet 2, you have 1, 2, 3. Sheet 3, you have 1, 2, 3. Okay, so by that cutting and folding, we have managed to create 3 pages for our album. So our album's going to have 9 pages in total. Okay, next step. We are going to need 2 pieces that are 6 inch by 4 inch or 15 centimetres by 10 centimetres, and we're going to need 1 piece that is 6 by 1 inches or 15 by 2 centimetres. The small one, the 6 by 1 or the 15 by 2, you just score it in half. In fact, all 3 pieces you're going to score in half along the short edge. So the 6 by 4 you will score at 2 inches or 5 centimetres, and then the small one you're going to score at half a centimetre or 1 centimetre or half an inch. Okay, the little one that is half an inch, we are going to just trim, keep the fold pointed towards you, and we're just going to trim off 2 little corners. And you end up with this almost arrow shape at either end. That's just to, again, make sure the page is nice and neat. Okay, we're going to take one of our pages, and there, where you've got the centerpiece, we're going to stick that small piece inside. So this is the 6 by 4. This is the 6 by 1 inch or the 15 by 2 centimeters. And we're going to stick it inside the pieces that fold together. So you'll have 2 loose sheets and 2 sheets that are together with a fold at the top, and we're just joining them at the bottom. And so that's going to become a little pull-out section. Okay, so I've stuck that on the bottom. I'm just going to add some glue, stick it to one side, make sure it's dry, and then stick it to the other side. And what that's going to do is that's going to seal that middle page together, which will give structure to our 3 pages. So this little piece is tucked inside, and all it's doing is connecting those pages together. Because we used the full 12 by 12, we don't have anything for a tab, so this is basically creating our own tab. So it goes inside, you won't be able to see it because we mitered those edges, and all that's going to do is create a little tuck spot like so. So now you've got your 3 pages. Okay, the other 2 are slightly different. So we have our larger pieces, 6 by 4 or 15 by 10 centimeters. These ones are going to go outside, and they're going to basically create a little pocket on each page as well. So you're going to position it on your page, line it up, make sure everything's nice and straight, and then all we're going to do is glue one edge and glue the other edge. And what that will give us is little pockets already created. Okay, so this is being glued on the outside. We're not gluing the whole surface. We're gluing down one edge and down the other edge. So the long edge is open to create a pocket. The nice thing is this will also give us the tuck page as well. Oh, I didn't show sticking the other side, but you're going to do that on both sides. Apologies, I must have edited that out. Hopefully I'll show it on the second page. Yes, here we go again. So position it on the outside of those 2 center pages. You want to make sure that it folds. So if you need to trim a little bit off, you can trim a little bit off. So all we're going to do is put glue on one side of the little flap and glue on the other side of the little flap. Move it up and glue it down. Turn it over and do exactly the same thing. Pull the flap down, put glue on each edge. Now remember, there's no glue in the middle of this. Because this overlaps the bottom, it's going to create that tuck spot in the middle and 2 pockets. It's a really clever little addition. There you go, glue on either side and stick it down, and then what you get is you still get that tuck spot in the middle, but you also get 2 pockets, one on either side, which is really nice. Now you can do these in any order you want. I did pockets, no pockets, pockets because I had 3 pages. If you don't want to create the pockets, you just do 3 smaller pieces. If you want to create all pockets, you just do 3 larger pieces. This is entirely customizable. I'm just showing you exactly what I did. So as you can see, that one has no pockets, but it has the tuck spot, and then the other 2 have tuck spots and pockets. Okay, so to show you how this looks, first set has a pocket, second set no pockets, and the third set has little pockets. You can again do this in any order you like. This is the order I did because I have 3 sets. Each page also has that center pull out. And so in that center pull out, we're going to create an extra page that comes out for photos. You don't have to, you can leave it empty, you can glue it solidly together. It is entirely up to you. I'm just showing you how I did this. Now, the other consideration with this, as you can see, there's not a lot of room between our pages because we made them all from one sheet. So if we were to stick flaps and lots of bulk inside, it would tear at those hinges. So we have to be careful where we're planning things. First step, we're going to cut 3 pieces for our pullouts. Now this was a paper I made a mistake on, so ignore that. You want 3 pieces that are 5 by 5 3/4 or 12 by 14 centimeters. And these 3 pieces are just going to slot into those gaps that we made. So remember, 2 of them have the pockets either side of those gaps, and then one of them doesn't have pockets because we made the gap inside. Now it's hard to see around my special helper, but you can see me just sliding those in to the gaps that we created. You will see them again later, so don't panic. I know she's not being the most helpful kitten in the world. She does like to be there and say hi and come for a treat from time to time. There is Stu in the background being silly and making everybody entertained. Again, if you'd like to see the fun, come and join us on Twitch. Okay, next step is the hinges, and this is quite tricky. So I'll put the numbers on the board, on the screen as well. So you want a piece that is 5 3/4 by 7 or 14 by 18 centimetres. So in inches, you want to score at 1.5, 2, 2.5, 3, 3.5, 4, 4.5, 5, 5.5. That's it. In centimetres, you want to score at 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 and 12. Okay? And then I'm going to show you how to fold them. So watch this carefully. So there are your score lines. So you've got a longer gap at the start and the end. That's the aim. So what we're going to do, ignore the first longer one, and the next two we're going to fold together. Skip one, and the next two we're going to fold together. Okay, skip one, and then the next two we're going to fold together. And what you will have is you'll have this sort of 3 little mountain section. Now, the easiest way to do this on the back is to number all the pieces, as I've done there in pencil. You're not going to see this. We're then going to stick tape or glue on number 2, number 5 and number 8. Okay, tape is often easier just because you can work slower. So 2, 5 and 8. What we're going to do is we're going to take the tape backing off of number 2 and we're going to stick number 3 on top of it. Okay, and that then sticks together your hinge. Take the tape off of number 5, stick number 6 on top of it, and then take the tape off of number 8 and stick number 9 on top of it. And so then those numbers disappear and you're left with 1, 4, 7, 10 on the back. And then when you turn it over, you have 3 hinges. Now you just want to fold them both ways, give it a real burnish so that they're used to turning. Basically just go through and make sure everyone is creased and done nicely, okay? Then we are going to pop the pages on when it's in the album, just like so. They will slot on top, like so. In that centre page, they will just slide on, and that is where your hinges will fit. There you go. I'm hoping that makes sense. If not, please pop questions in the comments. I'm happy to answer them. Again, if you'd like to see this in real time, then pop over to Twitch. It is saved. Okie dokie. Next step is we're going to work on our cover. So I am going to create the cover using chipboard. You don't have to use chipboard, you could just use thicker card, you could use 2 layers of card. I just like using chipboard because it is stronger than the pages, and I feel like it gives a nice feel to the book if the cover is larger. Okay, so yes, as I say, I use chipboard to make my cover seem weightier, seem thicker, same thing. Now, to make this easy, again, I'm just going to cut the covers at 6 by 6. This is all 6 by 6 to make this as easy as possible. With other albums, I do make my covers slightly larger, so it's entirely up to you, but for this very beginner's one, everything is just 6 by 6 to make it easier. So I'm going to cut 2 pieces that are 6 by 6 or 15 by 15, and then the spine is going to be 6 by 2 or 15 by 5 centimetres. So my 6 by 6 pieces, I buy them in 6 by 6, so that's fine. The other piece I'm just going to trim out using a Stanley knife when the kitten is not around because she likes to headbutt things, and a metal ruler. So I'm just going to trim that off. I found this is the neatest way to do it for me personally. My chipboard was quite thick, so my trimmer wasn't cutting through it, and then I was trying to use scissors, but I found that using a blade like this is just the easiest way for me to do it. I just have to be very careful of the cat. She likes to headbutt things that I'm holding, so holding a blade with the cat, not the best way. Right, now we're going to wrap our chipboard. Now for the pages, I used quite thick card. I used 250 GSM. You don't want to use that for the cover. You don't want to use heavyweight because it will crack. You want to use a lighter weight. So this is, I think, 160. Now I'm going to use 2 pieces. I did cut one down because it was a scrap and it just happened to fit. But I'm going to use 2 pieces of A4 or letter paper. You want to make sure that the pages, the cover will fit on it. So I'm just going to stick them together using a bit of tape, as you can see. It's just the easiest way to do it. So now I have a long piece, and I'm going to make sure that my pieces fit. Now, you do not want your spine to be where you've joined the pages, because that's just going to increase the chances of cracking. It's going to make it want to crack. So you want to make sure that your spine piece sits over that crack. If it's next to it, all the tension of the pages opening and closing will end up putting too much pressure on the paper. So when I stick my spine piece down, as you'll see in a second, I'm going to stick it directly over that join. Okay, you will have excess paper to cut off, that's fine, but yeah, so I'm going to put some tape on and some glue. I use both just for extra security. You don't need to use both. You can just use glue, you can just use tape. It's entirely up to you. I use both because I sometimes sell my albums and I want them to be secure. So line it up. You want about an inch top and bottom, and then I'm going to push that down directly over my join. Okay, so that joined paper is right in the middle, as you can see. Now I'm going to add the covers. You don't want them touching. If they touch, if the edges touch, you won't be able to close or open your album. So you want to leave roughly, depending on the thickness of your chipboard, 1/8 of an inch if it's thin, or 1/4 of an inch if it's quite thick. Best way to do it is take 2 offcuts to 2 scrap pieces of chipboard and make sure you can fit them in between. I use a ruler just to help me make sure it's lined up, and can you see I'm leaving that gap in between. I'm going to use my ruler to make sure that I am lined up nicely, but I'm leaving that gap, and I'll show you why in a second. So next one, again, I've got my tape and my glue. I'm going to use my ruler. You can just see all the people popping in and saying hi and all the overlays for Twitch. I hope this isn't too distracting. I'm trying to find a way of recording without all of this stuff to make it easier for you. Okay, so again, I'm going to stick the other page on, make sure it's straight. You've got that gap. Now, you can cut off your excess paper. You want to make sure that you have enough room. So my covers were 6, my spine was 2, so what's that, 14. You want a gap, you want an inch each end, so 16. So you probably want it to be 17 inches along. And my A4 paper is only 11 3/4. So yeah, I'm just going to cut off that extra bit, leave me a roughly an inch. It doesn't have to be exact, just roughly an inch all the way around. Okay, once your glue is dry and your pieces are on, we're going to start wrapping this. Now, you need to be careful when you do this. So I start with what I call massaging the paper. If you just lift it up and fold it straight away, it's likely to crack. So what I do is I do what I call massaging it, where I lift it slowly. Okay, so I'm just going to lift it up slowly. Again, just showing you want about an inch when you fold it. Doesn't have to be exact, don't panic if you've got 3/4 of an inch or an inch and a half, but that's what you're aiming for. So I'm just gently massaging up that paper, and then when it's used to folding, I can then come in and burnish it. It's quicker on the short edge because there's less paper, but doing this will make your life so much easier. Please do not skip this part. So again, gently massage it, little bit at a time, little bit at a time, and then once it's okay with being folded, then you can push it down and then burnish it. You just want to make sure that when we add the glue to this, it knows exactly where it's going. Okay, so do all 4 sides like so. Again, the short edges are quicker, much quicker. Okay, and now once we are done, we'll be ready to wrap it. So you've done all 4 sides. The next step is we're going to add some tape. Now you will be cutting the corners off of this, but I like to put my tape on first just to make sure it's really sticky. Now we're going to cut the corner off, but you are not cutting right up against the chipboard. If you cut right up against the chipboard, you will see the chipboard when you fold it. So you want something, I use my ruler because it's got a little bit of thickness, and I'm just going to draw a line a little bit away from that chipboard. Okay, and I'll probably cut just outside that line. You can always go back and cut more off, you can't add more on, so erge on the side of caution. So for each corner, I'm going to mark roughly 1/8 of an inch, 1/4 of an inch out from that corner, and that is where I'm going to cut in a minute. You can cut first, but I find they stick better if I put my tape on first. So I draw my lines so I know where I'm going to cut, and now I'm not going to put tape all the way to the corner. I'm just going to overlap where I'm going to cut it. Hold on, my kitten helper is back. So I'm not putting tape all the way to the corner. If you put tape all the way to the corner, you're just going to cut it off and it's a waste. But having drawn my pencil lines on, I now know where I'm cutting, and that gives me the ability to make sure that that section I'm cutting has tape on it. I hope this is making sense. If I was to cut the corners first, because my tape has a straight edge, I'd end up with sections that don't have any tape on. I'm hoping that makes sense. So by doing my pencil line and just overlapping my pencil line, then I can make sure it's stuck. We're then going to put tape all the way round on the chipboard, long sides and short sides. Start with the long sides. Trust me, it's just easier to start with the long sides. Okay. So now, when you fold it over, you've got two bits of tape that are going to stick. One right on the edge of the paper and one on the inside. Okay. Do the same on the short edge. So again, in between that tape on the chipboard and just overlapping our pencil marks. Burnish it down, do the other side. And then we're going to come across the other tricky bit in a minute, but I will show you a tip. It's easy, please don't panic. Okay, when we fold, we are going to start with the long edges. Now, I can't remember if I messed up here and I was so into what I was doing that I forgot to cut my corners. I think I did. This is where you cut your corners. Yes, I forgot. I was so interested in what I was doing and talking to the cat that I started sticking it down. Cut your corners first, please. Don't do what I do. Okay. When you do come to stick, what you're going to do is add a little bit of glue extra before you stick it down, just for security. Again, you don't need to. You can use all tape, you can use all glue. I just like to use both. When you fold it, start in the centre, secure the centre down, and then move out to the side. This way you can eliminate bubbles and creases and things like that. And then, this is where someone in my lovely chat pointed out that I hadn't cut the corners. And I was like, oh yeah, something's gone wrong here. Cut your corners first. Everyone makes mistakes, so I'm just showing you I make mistakes too. So now I sort of had to faff around trying to cut my corners, which was really difficult because I'd already stuck them, but there we go. I did manage it, only because I've done it so many times. Now we trim our corners. Do you see how much easier life is when you trim them first? Please, please trim them first. Played a little bit of buckaroo with the cat. She is super cute. She's so cute. Again, if you want to see her live, come see us on Twitch. Right, so now we're going to do this again. So what I do is I add a little bit of glue right along the edge of the chipboard. Okay, so I take my tape backing off and I add a little, oh, my glue had splurted. I add a little bead of glue that runs right along the edge of the chipboard, just to make sure that it, on those outer edges, it's secure as well. You don't have to do this. I just like to do it for added, like, it looks better, it's more secure, I'm more convinced it's secure. So again, just a little bead of glue right along the edge of the chipboard, and then if you want to, you can fill in the gap. Now we fold up, again starting in the middle. So I'm going to start with where my spine is. I'm going to fold that piece over. I'm going to talk so much that my glue's going to dry in a second. But yeah, I'm going to fold up the centre first, because we've already massaged it, it knows where it wants to go. And then I'm going to work out to the side so that I get rid of any creases or any air bubbles. Okay, so that's that done. Okay, so we've stuck the long sides down now. We're not going to fold anything yet. We're now going to move on to doing our short sides. Now, the thing with this is, look at my little helper. The thing with this is, I'm just going to tidy up because I cut in a panic. The thing with this is, you will end up, if you just fold this, you will end up with some not particularly neat edges. And if you see here, you end up with sticky out bits, like it doesn't look great. You get these little notches. So we need to fold those round. So using something hard, you can use your nails if they're strong enough, mine are not. We're just going to fold round that edge. And all it does is fold that tiny bit of card in. You're not folding huge chunks. We're just folding the tiniest amount, and then repeat the process. Take the glue, tape backing off, add some glue, fold it over and burnish it down. Okay, and now you get a nice neat corner. No sticky out bits because we folded it through first. This is also another way to ensure that none of your chipboard is showing. So again, just come round that corner and bend it in. Sometimes you'll have a lot of cards, sometimes you'll only have a little bit, but it just wraps that corner so you get a much nicer look. And then again, remove tape backing, add your bead of glue along the side, fill in the gap if you want to add more glue. You don't have to. See, I didn't here. And then just burnish it down. And now your cover is wrapped. You've got nice neat edges and the cover itself is wrapped. We are going to fold it, but I'm going to give it time to dry because I've used a bit of glue. If you've used tape, you can do this pretty much straight away, but I always like to give it a little bit of time. So we're going to cut to when I'm doing that. What we're going to do, you don't want to find something with a sharp edge like my pointed triangular ruler. So I use this ruler that has a rounded edge. And I'm going to find that gap and I'm going to slowly roll it back and forth while bending the page. Do this slowly. This is sped up. Please do it slowly. And what will happen is that paper will get tucked in. Now, if you've left enough space, as you can see, you can fold it flat. If yours doesn't fold flat, don't push it because you might crack your paper. But that's the aim with practice, that it will fold completely flat. So now you've got nice, neat tucked in places and your cover is complete. Okay. Again, if yours won't fold flat, don't push it. You don't want to break it. So our pages will fit inside like so. That is how the album will look when it's complete. Okay, next step, we're going to go back to our hinges. Now, I do this before I stick them in the book just because it makes my life easier. You can do it after if you want, but it's easier to manipulate when you do it before. So, our little hinges that we created were 1/2 inch or 1 centimetre. So my tape is just smaller than that. My tape is 3/8 or 3/4 of an inch, 3/4 of a centimetre. So it's just smaller than the hinge. And what we're going to do, on each of those sticky up bits, we're going to put a strip of tape on either side. You can go much smaller if you want, use 1/4 of an inch tape or, you know, 1/2 centimetre, whatever you want. I use it, Joe, it's just smaller, just so that if the page isn't quite perfect, there isn't sticky tape showing. Again, you can use glue if you want. I just find tape is easier to do in advance. And I like to be able to do things in advance, so once it's in the book, it's the easiest job possible. So here we go. Actually, I switched to a thinner tape. And I'm putting it right on the outside edge. So if my tape is thinner, I'm doing it on the outside edge. So as you can see, it's not near the fold, it's near the top, near the most sticky out part. I'm hoping that makes sense. So we're going to put tape on both sides of each of those 3 sections. Right on that outside fold edge. Just pop it on both sides of each one. And that's how we're going to attach our pages. So you want to use a good, strong quality tape here. Not get it stuck all over your fingers like I did. That bit ripped, so I'm just going to replace the whole strip to make my life easier when peeling. There we go. So now all 6 edges, or 6 sides, have tape on. And that's just going to help us attach our pages a little bit later. Make sure it's fully burnished down. You want this to be really well stuck to your paper so that your pages adhere nicely. Okay, then turn it onto the back. Apologies for all those emotes that came up. Somebody just followed or subscribed. And it's just a way to show my thanks. So on the back, I use a thicker roll of tape just to save time. Again, you can use whatever tape you have. And I'm just going to cover the back with tape. So my tape is slightly too thick, so it's going to overlap. So I'm just removing a little bit of the tape backing so that I can stick the other sheet on. And so that whole back piece is covered. Again, you can use glue. You can use thin tape. I'm just using what I have on hand to show you. Right. Now we're going to line this up in our book. Now, as you can see, the extra pieces that we had slightly overlap the gaps in our cover, which is what we want. So I'm just going to add a little bit of tape. Extra tape, yes, 2 layers of tape just to secure it, just on either side of those gaps. So I'm not putting tape everywhere. Where we've got those gaps between the spine and the cover for it to bend, obviously there's nothing in between those for it to secure to, so I'm just adding a bit of extra tape for security. You don't have to, I'm just advising. So remove that tape backing. I'm going to remove the tape backing from the back of my hinges, so we covered the whole of the back, remember. Then I'm going to use some glue just to add strength and to give me some wiggle room, because you want to make sure this is straight. So I'm covering everything with glue so that I can adjust it, because the glue isn't going to dry straight away. What you want to do is position this top and bottom centered and side to side centered. So you want your 3 hinges to be as centered on your spine as possible. You don't want all 3 of them right near the back gap or right near the front gap. If you need to make a pencil mark, that's fine. I'm then going to use my T-ruler just to make sure everything is nice and straight. T-ruler has saved my life. And then I'm just going to carefully burnish down all that glue and tape to secure it to the album. So it is stuck on the spine piece. Okay? That's why we have those extra large sections, the 1.5 inches, the 4 centimetres on either side, just to give us this gap to bridge. Next, we're going to cut 2 pieces to stick on the front, which are 5 3/4 by 5 3/4 or 14 by 14 centimetres. And we're going to stick that on. And what this is going to do is A, it's going to finish the look, but B, it's going to overlap the paper that we wrapped the cover in and the paper of our hinges. Okay? So it is going to overlap. That's where the fold is, and this is going to stick over it to help an extra security secure it to the book. Okay? So you do your hinges first, then you do these pages. It just adds an extra layer of security over the top of the hinges to keep them attached to your book. So I'm using my 2 glues. I do often use 2 glues. I use a quick drying glue on the outside edges so that my corners stick down, it's nice and secure. And then I use a slower drying glue in the middle, mostly because A, it's cheaper, and this specific glue gives me extra strength. The Kalau glue, when it dries hard, so it gives you extra strength when you are building things. And seeing as I do a lot of albums, I like to use a glue that can help me structurally. So front one is stuck on. We're going to do exactly the same on the back cover. Again, make sure it's overlapping, not next to our hinge piece. If you want, when you remake this several times, you can make those flaps longer. So if you wanted to do 2 inches at the front and 2 inches at the back, or 5 centimetres at the front, 5 centimetres on the back, you can do that. I'm just trying to use as little paper as possible in this so that it's beginner friendly in terms of the steps we're taking and the amount of paper used. Okay, so that's going to stick on now. Again, it's going to overlap that hinge piece by about 1/2 inch, maybe 1/4 inch or 1/2 centimetre. I'm just using my ruler there to make sure it doesn't overlap that fold. You don't want it to go over the fold line because then you've got too much bulk. Okay, so that's going to secure, and now I'm going to fully let this dry. Because I've used glue as well as tape, I want this to dry. If you can, ideally to leave it overnight. If not, I would say at least a couple of hours. This is the structure that holds everything together. You do not want to weaken this by bending it before it's dry. So I'm going to set this to one side, and we are going to move on to the next step. Oh, look at my kitten. I have 2 helpers while I was doing this. I have my kitten and I have my Stu, my Modnificent, over on Twitch and Discord. Right, next step, we are going to create some flaps. Now, I wanted, as I've stated, to save paper. So I'm cutting these at 6 by 6. You can make them larger once you see what I'm doing. So I am cutting 8 pieces that are 6 by 6, so 15 by 15 centimetres. And on one edge, I am scoring at 1/2 inch or 1 centimetre. Okay, I'm creating 8 of these. You can create less if you like. And I'm doing them 6 by 6 just to save paper, because I'm doing 8 pieces. That's 2 sheets of 12 by 12. But they're not going to cover the whole page. So once you've seen this, if you decide, oh, I want them to cover the whole page, you're going to have to cut them at 6 by 6.5. But to save paper, to use the least amount of paper possible, I cut them at 6 by 6 so that I can save paper, make it as easy as possible for you to follow. So all of those, I'm going to fold and burnish my score line. So that was 1/2 inch or 1 centimetre on each side. Okay, now we're going to use these on both the covers and the pages. So everywhere there's going to be a flap. Now, if we go back to our base pages, so remember we made a 12 by 12 into 3 pieces. The inside we can't add hinges to because it's a very tightly packed page and you don't want to risk putting stress on it. So these are going to go on the very front and the very back of those sets of 3 pages, okay? You can stick this to the top, to the bottom, to the left-hand side, to the right-hand side, however you want to do your design. For me personally, I did the sides mostly, and then the very centre set of pages I did flaps that lifted up. But you do it how you like. I'm just showing you how I did it. So on the very front and the very back of each of these, I am sticking one of these flaps. Now, We cut them at 6 by 6, but no one is perfect. I mean, maybe you are perfect. I'm not perfect. So before you stick these down, just measure it against your page to make sure that it's the right size, because sometimes you cut a slightly large 6 or a slightly smaller 6. You know, you may be perfect, I'm not. So I have to measure each and every one. Now, this is where I'm showing you, very difficultly because the cat's in the way, on the centre page, the one where I don't have the little pockets, I'm going to make my flaps lift up rather than go to the side. So I'm just gluing it along that top edge. Okay? All we're doing is putting glue on the little flap and then sticking it on the edge that we like. Here we go again. I needed to trim one because I hasn't got it quite right. It's not a problem. Put glue on the little flap and then attach that to the edge you want it to flap to, whether it goes up, down, left or right. You can do it whatever direction you like. It's your album. So for the first and the third pages, I did it going to the side, and then the middle pages, I did it going up, just to give some variety. You do it however you like, lovely. However you like. Again, just measure each one to make sure. I'm trimming off like the smallest slithers here, but just do it to make sure it is nice and neat. Okay, again, so just stick that on wherever you would like. Make sure it's nicely glued down, and then you've got a flap. How simple is that? So as you can see, my flaps don't reach the whole length of the page because I'm using 6 by 6 pieces to minimise paper waste. If you want to make them bigger so they do fit the whole page, you would need to cut 6 by 6.5 or 15 by 16 centimetres. Okay, we've got all our flaps on now. Then you need to decide how you're closing them. Are you going to use magnets? Are you going to use Velcro? Are you going to use, you know, ribbon? You can do whatever you like. Now it's the next day for me, so I'm going to slowly fold my pages. Do exactly the same as we did before. So I'm going to use my curved ruler edge to push down gently as I slowly bend the page. This will no longer fold flat. You've got your hinges in there, you've got other things. It will no longer fold flat, but it will fold to look like an album. Again, just go through, make sure if there's anything that's lifted, you need to add a little smidgen of glue to. As I say, no one is perfect. We all have to make adjustments, and there is no shame in that at all. Okay, so once that is done, you can now see it's looking like an album cover again. It's not nice and flat. Take your time doing it, please, because if you rush, you risk cracking things, and then you've got to restart the whole cover again because trying to fix a crack in the cover is quite hard. Okay, I'm also going to add flaps to my front and back cover just because I want space for photos. So give it a quick measure, make sure it's the right size, and then we're going to stick these on the front and back covers in exactly the same way. This is why I cut 8, 2 for each set of pages, 1 for the front cover, 1 for the back cover. So again, I'm just going to, on the outside edges, add my glue to the flap and stick it down. Again, it's not going to cover the whole page because I used 6 by 6 pieces to save paper. You can adjust this sizing if you want to. So again, front and back, I'm just going to stick them down so that each cover has a flap as well, just to add some interest. You don't need to add flaps to your covers. You could add a pocket instead. You could do other things, but again, to make this as easy as possible, we're just repeating the same process on each set of pages, including the cover. So they've got a little flap there. Okay, now you need to decide how to attach things. I use a lot of magnets in albums because I like the noise it makes. I think it's nice and neat. I'm going to stick my magnets here, but I have a full video showing you how to do magnets, which I will link, so you can go and watch in detail, showing you how to attach the magnets. I'm not going to show it here because this is about making this album. So if you would like to use magnets, then you need to go through and watch that video to show you in detail how to add your magnets. If you don't want to use magnets, you can decorate it as usual and use sticky back Velcro over the top of your paper. That will be visible. Magnets are not visible. We put it on before the paper. You could use ribbon closures. Stick your ribbon on before you do the paper and then tie a bow in your ribbon to close the page. I have some examples of these on other albums, and I will be doing an entire video on different ways to close your pages. I tend to side towards magnets a lot. I just like them. I know it can be tricky getting magnets. They can be quite expensive. You know, people with pacemakers need to be careful with magnets. These aren't that strong, but is still a consideration. So just have a think how you would like to close your pages. You also don't have to close your pages. If you're quite happy with your pages being loose and opening themselves so that people go, oh, okay, I know exactly where I'm going, go for it. I just like to have my flaps closed so that there's a little bit of investigation when they open the album. Oh, what do I have to do here? You do not have to do this. But as you can see, I've used a magnet on each flap just to secure it. Again, go watch the video if you would like more details in how I add my magnets. Now, this is the paper pad I used. It's absolutely beautiful. It's called Be Happy by Dovecraft. And all I'm doing now is going through and cutting my paper to fit. Now, these flaps finished, the flaps we've just added, the finished size will be 6 by 5.5 or 15 by 14 centimetres. Now, all I'm going to do is cut my pages slightly smaller than that. So I go down by 1/4 inch. So where it's 6 by 5.5, I will cut 5 3/4 by 5 1/4. In centimetres, it's 15 by 14, so I will cut 14.5 by 13.5, go down 1/2 centimetre. But you do you. You can cut them the same size if you don't want any of the craft, like the backing card, to show. You can cut them even smaller. You can go down by 1/2 inch or a whole centimetre. It's entirely up to you. This is just what I do. And the nice thing here is all the flaps are the same size. So I know all my flap pieces I'm going to cut to the same size. All my base pages are 6 by 6 or 15 by 15. So all of my card for those, or my decorative paper, is going to be the same size. And that's why I like this album, because it allows you to do that. Now, what I was just doing there is I was just checking my album, moving it around to see which I wanted to be the front and the back. Was there any little errors that I want to hide at the back? Is there a side where the corners look perfect? I want them at the front. Decide that before you add your paper, because your paper is directional. What I'm now doing is I ink the edges of my paper. So because I'm using craft card, I do the same when I'm using black. To be fair, I do it on most papers now, but the design paper that I'm using has a white background. So the edges are also white. So if I have a nice sort of like orange paper on this brown background, but then my edges are white, you really notice those white edges. So all I do is take an ink of choice. We chose the colour based on what would work best. And I just brush a little bit of ink around those edges. It gives it a bit of a vintage look, which is really nice if that's the look you're going for. But it also hides those little white edges. And I think it just sort of levels up a project. So as you can see here, just in the corner, I know it's hard because the kitten's in front of everything. I'm literally just rubbing ink around the edge. And you can see where it's slightly darker on the edges. And it hides that white edge, which is especially important if you have a craft or a black background. And it just adds a really nice sort of vintagey look to the papers. But you do not have to do this step. You do not have to. This is just a design choice that I like to do. You can do it in colours. I've done a baby album where the pages were pink and I used pink ink to ink the edges. You don't have to use a dark colour. This was just my choice for this paper set. So experiment, choose what you'd like to do. So, as I say, because of the sizing we've used, all of my design paper is going to be cut to the same size, which makes it really easy. If you were doing something like this and you wanted to, batch cut all your paper while you were watching TV, for example, you know the measurements, you can just go and cut all your paper, just make sure it's facing the right direction where it's not square. And now we're just going to stick the paper down. So for this I use art glitter glue. It's my favourite glue for sticking paper down because it doesn't wrinkle your paper. It's really strong. It's perfect. If you can't afford it, any glue will do. It is a slightly more expensive glue. I invested because I make a lot of albums, but you use whatever glue you have. There's lots of good glues around. So I know it's hard to see with the kitten, but we're just going to glue down all of these pages. I'm starting with the front and back cover. I used my favourite pages for that because that's going to be like the first and the last thing you see. Remove the backing of the glue of the magnet before you glue it down, just to give extra security as well, as you can see me doing there. The only other thing I will recommend at this point, I didn't, and I nearly made a mistake. Choose the paper you want for your covers first and put them to one side so that you don't cut them. Okay? I nearly messed up. And so at this point, I'm like, right, I definitely want that honeycomb page for the front cover. I'm removing it now so that I don't cut into it. And now all we're going through is cutting off ripping out the pages that we're going to use, cutting them to size, inking them and sticking them in. You don't need me to talk through this, you know the sizes. I'm just going to pop a little bit of music on while I do this so you can see the process, and then I'll come back to you in a minute. Okay, so the only thing to consider here with your pocket, our pocket is stuck down, so you need to measure how much space you've got. Now it should be just about 2 inches. Remember we folded it in half at that point, or 5 centimetres. So you want to cut your paper so that it's just above the pocket, and you can still get things in and out of the pocket, and then you're going to use another piece to cover the pocket. So the pocket pages, those 4 pages are the only pages that will be slightly different. But just take your time, give it a measure, and go through slowly. Okay, so I'm just going to use up my scraps rather to cover over the pockets. So the only real consideration I made with this album, with my papers, was making sure I didn't have the same patterns touching, really. So I made sure if I'd used a paper in the first page, I didn't use it again until the next set of pages. So all the pages are now covered, the front and back covers are covered inside. Now we're going to attach our pages to the album. Now make sure your pages are up the right way. Make sure that they are in the right order. A lot of people start at the front. I personally find it so much easier to start at the back. So you're going to find that middle gap that we created. Okay, you're going to peel back a little bit of the tape backing and you are going to slide your page over that hinge right up to the fold line. Okay, so you're going to push it right up to that score line. Okay, all the way on, stick it down and then remove the tape backing. This is why this hook tool is so useful. Turn it over and do the same. Now page 2, try not to rip your tape backing. We're going to slide it on again and I'm going to line this up with the previous page. This is why I prefer to work from the back, but everyone is different. Repeat the process, remove the tape backing, stick it down, and then do the third or the front one. Again, line it up, make sure everything's nice and straight and neat. Remove your tape backing and glue it down, turn it over and remove it. Now, when you do it, you want to make sure that all of your pages are nice and neat. And then we're going to cover the front and back cover. So I'd put my papers aside, as I said, but because I miscut a couple of pages, as you saw, I didn't have paper for the cover, for the spine. So I'm going to give you a little tip. This front page that has all the strips of the papers is usable. So all I did was I cut that down to the right size and stuck it on the spine. You can use every bit of your paper pad. Okay, then to decorate. This paper collection comes with puffy stickers, some gems and some charms. So I just use those to decorate. If you don't have those, you can use cut up elements from the paper pack if there are pictures. You could print something off. You can use your letters to create a word. It's totally up to you. I was lucky enough to have these stickers. Now, even though these are stickers, the same that the gems are sticky back, I always add glue just because you want it to be secure. Then I added one of the little charms, and what I did was I just tucked it under one of the stickers. Rather than drilling a hole and making it difficult, I just tucked it under one of the stickers. Okay, and then the last step are pullouts. If you had some paper left over, I did. I just used a 1/2 inch strip or an inch strip or whatever you have, trimmed it to the right size and stuck it just on the outside edge. You can cover the whole thing with paper if you want, but bear in mind we want photos or memories to be stuck on these. So if you cover the whole thing, you've got the card, 2 layers of paper and 2 layers of photos. It's going to get quite bulky. So all I did was just cover the outside edge, so when it gets pulled out of the pocket, there is the appearance of paper on it. I only did the front. You can do the front and the back if you like. You can do this however you like. This is just what I did. And again, I'm just making sure that my paper doesn't match the paper that it's going to be seen next to. And there we go. So I've got stickers on the spine. I've just got a plain back because it's the back. And there's my front. And you go through, you've got a flap to the side, a flap to the side, you turn it. You've got 2 little pockets. You have got the pull out in the centre there that I forgot to show. And then another flap to the side. Then in the middle we've got a flap up that opens. No pocket, but you've got the pull out in the centre. And then another flap to the top. And then a flap to the side. You open it out, you've got the little pockets. You've got the pull out, the other little pocket. And then another flap to the side. And then the back cover is another flap. And we're done. Okay, and we are done. That is my 6x6 Beginners Album step-by-step tutorial. If I've missed anything, if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. Yeah, thank you all for being here. Keep crafting and I'll see you all soon. Bye!